The plane's engines roared, a primal scream against gravity, as I clutched the armrest, heart pounding like it wanted to escape my chest. 30,000 feet above the earth, I was a stranger to myself, running from a life that no longer fit. Then I saw him, my seatmate, with eyes like a storm over the Atlantic, and everything changed. I'm Ethan Carter, a 28-year-old graphic designer from Chicago, fleeing to San Francisco to escape a family that saw my truth as a sin. The window seat in row 17 was my sanctuary, a temporary reprieve from the weight of their disapproval. I'd packed light, one suitcase, a sketchbook, and a heart bruised by years of hiding who I was. The plane was half empty, a red-eye flight cutting through the night, and I thought I'd have the row to myself. But then he slid into the aisle seat, all quiet confidence and tousled brown hair, carrying a worn leather journal and a smile that felt like it could unravel me. "Hope you don't mind a talker," he said, his voice low, like he was sharing a secret. His name was Lucas Hayes, a 30-year-old photographer from Seattle, heading to San Francisco for a gallery opening. He had this way of looking at you, like he saw every layer, every scar, every hope you'd buried. I wasn't ready for it, not when I'd spent so long building walls. The plane leveled off, and the cabin lights dimmed, casting us in a soft glow. Lucas leaned back, his shoulder brushing mine, and I felt a spark, sharp and undeniable. "So, Ethan," he said, turning those storm-gray eyes on me, "what's got you running across the country at 2 a.m.? It wasn't an accusation, but it cut deep. I deflected with a laugh, mumbling about a fresh start, but his gaze didn't waver. He saw through me, and for the first time in years, I didn't want to hide. We talked about art, about cities, about dreams we'd shelved to please others. Lucas told me about his conservative upbringing, how he'd left home at 18 after his parents rejected him for being gay. They thought they could pray it away, he said, his voice steady but laced with old pain. But I found my own family, people who love me for me. His words hit like a lifeline, and I found myself confessing things I'd never said aloud. The fights with my parents, the suffocating church sermons, the loneliness of pretending to be someone I wasn't. The hours slipped away, and the plane became our private universe. Lucas's hand grazed mine on the armrest, and I didn't pull away. His fingers lingered, warm and sure, and my pulse raced. "You ever feel like the world's too small for who you are?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, unable to speak, as he leaned in closer, his breath warm against my cheek. The sky outside the window was endless, a canvas of stars, and for a moment, it felt like we were the only two people in existence. But then the plane hit turbulence, a violent jolt that snapped us back to reality. The seatbelt sign flashed on, and the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, warning of storm ahead. Lucas's hand tightened on mine, and I realized I wasn't scared, not of the turbulence, not of him, not of the truth I'd been running from. As the plane shook, he leaned in even closer, his forehead nearly touching mine, and whispered, "Whatever happens, Ethan, you're not alone anymore." The storm outside mirrored the one inside me, but with Lucas beside me, I felt something new, courage. I didn't know what San Francisco held for us, but I knew I wanted to find out with him. The plane steadied, but my heart didn't. Lucas's hand stayed on mine, a quiet anchor in the chaos of the storm. Outside, lightning cracked the sky, illuminating clouds like jagged dreams. But inside row 17, the world felt softer, safer. We talked through the night, our voices weaving a fragile bridge between strangers. Lucas shared stories of his photography, capturing fleeting moments, like a couple dancing in the rain or a child chasing fireflies. "I want to freeze the things that matter," he said, his eyes bright with passion. "The things people overlook." I told him about my sketches, how I'd pour my fears into lines and shadows, hiding them in a sketchbook no one ever saw. He asked to see one, and I hesitated, my fingers trembling as I opened the book to a drawing of a man standing alone under a fractured sky. "That's you, isn't it?" he said, Not judging, just understanding. I nodded, feeling exposed but strangely free. Lucas reached for the sketchbook, his fingers brushing the page like it was sacred. "You're not alone in that fracture," he said. "I've been there too." He flipped to a blank page and handed me a pencil. "Draw something for me. Right now." I laughed, nervous, but the way he looked at me, like he believed in me, made me start. I sketched the view outside the window, clouds swirling like emotions, and added two silhouettes in the foreground, their hands touching. Lucas watched, his smile growing, and when I finished, he said, "That's us." The flight attendants passed by, offering drinks, but we barely noticed. The world beyond our seats faded, and it was just us, sharing pieces of ourselves we kept locked away. Lucas told me about his first love, a boy from high school who'd broken his heart when fear pulled them apart. "I thought I'd never trust again," he admitted, his voice raw. "But then I learned love isn't about owning someone. It's about choosing them every day." His words sank into me, stirring something I'd buried under years of shame. I told him about my ex, Mark, who I'd dated in secret for a year before he left, unable to handle the secrecy. "I wasn't brave enough to be open," I said, my voice cracking. "I let him go because I was scared." Lucas's eyes softened, and he squeezed my hand. "You're braver than you think, Ethan. You're here, aren't you?" The plane began its descent, and the reality of landing loomed. San Francisco wasn't just a new city. It was a new life, and I wasn't sure I was ready. Lucas sensed my unease and pulled out his journal, scribbling something before tearing out the page and handing it to me. It was a phone number written in bold, messy ink with the words, "For when you're ready to keep choosing yourself." My throat tightened, and I slipped the paper into my pocket, a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. As the wheels touched down, the cabin lights brightened, and the spell of our private world cracked. Lucas stood to grab his bag, and I felt a pang of panic. What if this was it? What if this connection was just a fleeting moment, lost in the chaos of a new city? But then he turned to me, his smile steady, and said, "Meet me at the gallery tomorrow night, 7 p.m. I want you to see my work, and maybe see you again." I nodded, my heart racing, as we stepped into the terminal. The storm had passed, but a new one was brewing inside me, a mix of hope and fear, pulling me towards something I'd never dared to chase. San Francisco greeted me with a damp breeze and the hum of possibility. I checked into a small hotel near the gallery district, my suitcase lighter than my thoughts. Lucas's number burned in my pocket, a tether to the man who'd made the sky feel like ours. That night, I barely slept, replaying our flight. His voice, his touch, the way he'd seen me when I'd spent so long feeling invisible. By morning, I was a mess of nerves, sketching furiously to calm myself. I drew Lucas's face from memory, capturing the curve of his jaw, the intensity of his eyes. The page felt alive, like it held a piece of him, and I realized I was already falling, fast and hard. The gallery was a sleek, modern space with exposed brick walls and soft lighting. I arrived early, clutching my sketchbook like a shield. The room buzzed with people, artists, critics, strangers with wine glasses, but I only cared about one person. Lucas's photographs lined the walls, each one a story frozen in time. A lone figure on a foggy pier, a couple embracing under city lights, a child's hand reaching for a balloon. His work was raw, human, and it pulled at something deep inside me. I found him near a photo of two men dancing in a park, their joy radiant despite the blurred faces. "You came," Lucas said, his smile brighter than the gallery lights. He wore a navy blazer, his hair slightly tamed, but his eyes were the same, stormy, searching, pulling me in. "What do you think?" he asked, gesturing to the photo. "It's beautiful," I said, my voice thick. "It's like you're showing the world what love really looks like." He blushed, and for a moment we were back on the plane, the world shrinking to just us. He led me through the exhibit, explaining each photo, but I was distracted by the way his hand brushed mine, the way his laugh lit up the room. Then a man approached, tall, polished, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Lucas, darling," he said, his tone possessive. "Introduce me to your friend." Lucas's face tightened, and he introduced me to David, his ex, a gallery curator who'd helped fund the show. David's gaze was cold, appraising, and I felt like an intruder. "So, you're the artist Lucas won't stop talking about," David said, his words sharp. Lucas flinched, and I realized there was history here, painful, unresolved history. The night wore on, and David hovered, his presence a shadow over us. Lucas tried to keep things light, but I saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his smile faltered. During a quiet moment, he pulled me aside and whispered, "I'm sorry. David and I, it's complicated. He doesn't like letting go." I wanted to ask more, but the hurt in his eyes stopped me. Instead, I took his hand and said, "I'm here, Lucas. I'm not going anywhere." We left the gallery together, walking into the cool night air. The city sparkled, alive with possibility, but danger lingered too. David watched us from the doorway, his expression unreadable, and I felt a chill. Lucas's past wasn't just a story. It was a storm we'd have to face together. The next week was a whirlwind. Lucas and I met daily, coffee shops, pier walks, late-night talks, and dive bars. San Francisco became our playground, each moment stitching us closer. But David's shadow loomed, his calls and texts a constant reminder of the past Lucas was trying to escape. One evening, we sat on a bench overlooking the bay, the Golden Gate Bridge glowing in the distance. Lucas was quiet, his usual spark dimmed. "David wants me back," he said finally, his voice heavy. "He says he's changed, but I don't trust him. He hurt me, controlled me, made me feel small." I listened, my heart aching, and took his hand. "You don't have to go back," I said. "You deserve someone who sees how incredible you are." He looked at me, eyes shimmering with unshed tears, and kissed me. It was soft at first, then urgent, like we were claiming each other against the world. The bay breeze carried the moment, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged, not to a place, but to him. But the next day, everything shattered. I arrived at Lucas's apartment to find the door ajar, papers scattered across the floor. His journal was open, pages torn, and a note in sharp, angry handwriting read, "You can't run from me." My stomach dropped. "David." I called Lucas, but his phone went to voicemail. Panic clawed at me as I searched the city, his favorite cafe, the gallery, the pier. Nothing. Hours later, he texted, "I'm okay. Meet me at Ocean Beach." I found him there, sitting on the sand, staring at the waves. His face was bruised, his eyes haunted. "David showed up," he said, voice shaking. "He got angry when I said I was done. He hit me." Rage surged through me, but Lucas grabbed my hand. "Don't go after him, Ethan. He's not worth it." We sat there, the ocean roaring, and I promised to protect him. But David wasn't done. The next day, he cornered me outside my hotel, his smile venomous. "Lucas is mine," he said. "Walk away, or you'll regret it." I stood my ground, heart pounding, and told him to leave us alone. He laughed, a chilling sound, and walked away, but I knew this wasn't over. That night, Lucas and I made a plan. We'd leave San Francisco, start fresh somewhere new, together. It was a risk, but the thought of losing him was worse. As we packed, I realized that love wasn't just a feeling, it was a fight, and I was ready to stand by his side. We chose Portland, a city of rain and reinvention. Lucas and I pooled our savings, rented a small apartment, and started building a life. But David's threats followed us. Anonymous messages, late-night calls, a sense of being watched. Lucas tried to stay strong, but I saw the fear in his eyes, the way he flinched at sudden noises. One night, I found him staring at a photo from his gallery show, the two men dancing. "I want that," he whispered. "A life where we're free to be us." I held him, promising we'd get there, but doubt gnawed at me. Could we outrun David's obsession? The breaking point came when David showed up in Portland. He'd tracked us, his anger now a dangerous edge. He confronted us outside a cafe, his voice low and threatening. "You think you could just leave?" He spat at Lucas. I stepped between them, heart racing, and told him to back off. A crowd gathered, phones out, and David hesitated, then left, but not before promising we'd pay. That night, Lucas broke down, blaming himself. "I drag you into this," he said, tears streaming. I cupped his face, forcing him to meet my eyes. "You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose you, Lucas. I'll keep choosing you." We decided to fight back, not with fists, but with truth. Lucas filed a restraining order, and I contacted a lawyer friend from Chicago. We gathered evidence, texts, voicemails, the torn journal, and built a case. The legal battle was grueling, but it gave us purpose. We leaned on each other, finding strength in shared moments. A sketch I drew of us laughing. A photo Lucas took of me against a rainy Portland skyline. Slowly, David's grip weakened. The restraining order held, and he faded into the background, his threats empty without power over us. Months later, we stood in a Portland park, the same kind of park from Lucas's photo. No cameras, no crowds, just us dancing under a drizzle, our laughter louder than the rain. We weren't running anymore. We'd built something real, something worth fighting for. The sky above was vast, but it no longer felt like an escape. It was our home, our private world, where love had won.